Hey guys, Amina here. Just wanted to give you guys a brief video about how the brain learns. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, I'm a teacher and I really believe very heavily in the importance of really working with the natural way that our brain works. If we are teaching in a way that works with the natural learning process in the brain, then we know that we are going to be able to better enhance the likelihood that our students are really going to learn some really cool stuff and become those lifelong learners, become intrinsically motivated, and basically just be better all around teachers. So here's how the brain learns. So what happens in the brain when learning happens? So synapses are the ends of the nerve cells, and they send an electric signal to each other to communicate or fire. And the synapses fire when that new information is learned. And the brain actually reorganizes itself and groups itself depending on how much has been learned. Now on brain scans, when new things are being learned, also times of heavy pruning, we'll get to that later, you'll see like a white residue buildup. And what that actually means is there's a type of fat that is building up in the brain to make the connections between the synapses stronger and more efficient and faster. Say what? Don't worry if that seems a little technical or confusing. Here's what it all means. The brain changes or reorganizes itself when it learns something. It does that through those ends of the nerve cells we called synapses, and they connect through that electric signal or they fire. So when the brain connects that new information, it does so by associating like a picture with a name. So for example, if you learn somebody's new name, you'd think of their face, or if you learn a new vocabulary word, you'd associate that with a picture. Hello, bear. Now, as that new information is accessed again and again and again and used in different ways, those synapses fire again. And because you're using it associated in different areas of the brain, for example, you're using it from your memory and you also went on a hike and then you saw a bear and you maybe saw another type of bear, all these different places where bear is stored in your brain are firing simultaneously. So that's how the brain reorganizes itself and continues to change over time at any time in your life as you learn something new. Now that we've gone through the basics of how learning actually happens physiologically in the brain, let's think about some other things that are also related to the way that we learn so that we can better design that lesson for class and enhance that deep learning. So one thing you want to remember is that learning is interrelated. What that means is, for example, your vision, right? When you see something, it's going to help you be more aware of your body or your balance, which is going to help you move better, and movement has also been associated with better learning. So when you're enhancing one area, you're enhancing others, but more importantly, if you can have that learning happen related to more than one area, you have a really good chance of enhancing the ability of that learner to actually change those brain synapses. Then the other thing you want to remember, just like we talked about in the previous slide, that groups of neurons, they change over time and reorganize. And we have times where we have a lot of change going on in the brain, like pruning. Pruning happens primarily, most heavily in toddlerhood, and then also when we have young adults and late teens, early adulthood. That's the other type of pruning that we see, where we see the heavy changes in the brain, a lot of that myelination that we talked about, where we see those synapses forming and we see your brain really becoming very individualized for how you pursue your interests. So if you really like science, those synapses related to science and mathematics in your brain are going to be more solidified at those times in your life. And that doesn't mean that you can't solidify them at other times. It just means that at this time we have that heavy pruning. Particularly in the late adolescent stage, we see a lot more of the pruning happening with emotional control, and that kind of relates to the maturation that you see with children and young adults. Finally, last point I want to make, get your beauty rest. There are some new studies that are really exciting, talking about how the brain actually cleans itself out when you sleep, particularly in children, but even during adulthood. When you sleep, your brain gets rid of the junk. Let's think of your brain like an email server. When you sleep, it gets rid of that spam and junk mail. So get that beauty rest, because that helps your brain prepare to better learn new things, like it makes more space for new things to be learned, and more importantly, it also solidifies those memory synapses that you'd made during the day. So this is also the time, sleep is also the time where you're going to see that transition from short-term memory into long-term memory. So remember, we're really trying to establish best practices for enhancing learning here. That's why we spend all this time trying to understand how the brain learns. So here's a few really quick, basic beginning tips for things that you can try introducing in your classroom, but there are also going to be a lot of links posted below the video, so check those out as well. So get to know your students. Use their interests in your lesson. Why does this work, you ask? So remember, we're connecting that new content to that background knowledge. And remember how I was talking before, when you have the synapses forming that same knowledge in different areas of the brain, they fire at the same time, thus strengthening that connection. Try collaboration in small mixed ability groups. This is an evidence-based practice. It is proven to work. Do some more research on it. Don't take my word for it. But also remember, there's a really important aspect I want to point out here. There's a difference between teamwork and group work. Now, Rob Dufour talks about teamwork being individuals who have that same goal, but they are interdependent upon each other, meaning they cannot succeed without the others. Whereas group work means that an individual can succeed regardless of what the other members of the group do, even though they all have the same goal. So think about that when you're using that collaboration in your classroom. Do you want them to work as a team, or do you want them to work as a group? So why does collaboration work? Remember, you're actually building more than one thing here. You're building that content knowledge, but you're also helping students develop those emotional, social skills. And remember how we're connecting those interrelated domains? Good stuff. Finally, use accurate and efficient assessments in your classroom to determine your success and adjust when necessary. None of us are perfect. None of us got it right the first time, 100% of the time, right? You always have something you can make better. So use those assessments even when you're thinking you're doing a good job. Find out where those pitfalls are and adjust and get even better. Don't look at it as a failure. Look at it as a challenge, like, okay, I'm really good at this, but look here, according to my assessments, I can do even better in this area. And that's going to make your teaching more efficient, and therefore it's going to make the learning that's happening in your classroom way more exciting and fun and just all around better. So that's all I have for you guys today about how the brain learns. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.